So, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Shackelford. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm a senior program manager with reacHIRE, which means I have the honor of helping individuals such as yourselves return to the workforce in a supportive way. And today I'm really proud to be able to introduce you to one of our fantastic returners, Ramya Ramamurthy, who recently completed a 6-month returnship and was hired on successfully as a vice president senior analyst. And Ramya did such an amazing job preparing for her returnship and taking advantage of networking, building relationships, building skills throughout her entire returnship. So we really wanted you to hear from her what she did to prepare so that you can all learn from someone who was in your shoes and came out the other side so successfully. So if you have questions for Ramya or about reacHIRE throughout the session, just go ahead and enter them in the right hand on the Q&A, and we'll either answer them throughout the session or we'll come back to them at the end, and Ramya can answer some of those, okay? So Ramya, you are up. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. It's hard to believe that I'm on the other side of the table this time, rather than watching with the others. I have been in their shoes, and to say that to when you go through this and you prepare for it, you feel alone and you feel overwhelmed when you see where the rest of the population has already moved on without you, and then you feel stuck at one place. I get it. I've been there. And I wanted to just share what I did after I get over the fact that, the self pity that I was going through. When I said, okay, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to start thinking more strategically as to how to approach this. So I'm going to share my screen. There are a few things that I put on slides so that, we can talk through. Give me a moment. Window, entire screen. There you go. All right, there you go. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, it was one. There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna make it full screen. Okay. So one of the things that I had to tell myself, to give a little bit of background, in 2013, after my daughter was born, I took a break. I went into postpartum depression and I didn't know how to get out of it. So I took a break at that time. After a few years, I decided to start a business of my own and in the food industry. So I went back to school for that. And I did very well. I started my own ice cream shops. And during the pandemic, I had to close it. I was back again to where I was started, where I had started. I didn't know what to do. I did have some debt because of the business, and I knew that I had to get back into the corporate world, and I wanted to at that point, actually. So, like I said again, but this time, what I did was I started to think more strategically. I knew that I had to get out of my comfort zone. When I say comfort zone is thinking about my kids, what would happen to them, where will I go, how will I manage my time, all of that. I just put it out of my mind. I said, let me first figure out what I want to do. When I say what I want to do, after you take a break, sometimes you don't want to go back to what you have done. I was mostly in sales and operations before. I didn't want to do that, mainly because I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to be away from home. I had other priorities now that I didn't have before. Um, so, so I started to take a good look at what all I'm good at. That's my first thing that I want you to do. Whiteboard it. Take a whiteboard and jot down all these things. Be very strategic about what you want to do. It maybe you've already figured it out, maybe you want to go back to what you've done before. That's great, but depending on the time, the length of your break, things have changed, technology has changed, the way you work has changed. So you need to find out what all it is so that you're more informed. So group together, the first point I have is group together what you're good at into broad categories. For me, I was very good at sales, business administration. I'd started my own business, so I had developed an overview of to look at the big picture rather than just narrowly before as I did before. I was very good at data. I was using data all the time. So when I started to look at what is it that I really wanted to do, I honed in on data for me. Then I started listing down what are all the things that I am good at in terms of skills. um, Hard skills can be Excel. I was doing Salesforce before, so I did that. During when I was in my business, I also did a lot of HR. Did I want to go into HR? I don't know. Did I want to do data in the HR in the HR group? Yeah, maybe. Did I want to do core HR? Probably not. So those are things that I wanted to separate out, and so that's what I did. So list out your hard skills, your soft skills. Soft skills can be problem solving, critical thinking. It can be you're very good at communications. You are good at writing process. What is it that you can do which are not where you have to go and say, I need a degree for this, or I need to go and learn this because this is not something that I've done. And when I just say soft skills and hard skills, this is also what you have done during your break. Maybe you were on the PTA. I was on my son's PTA board, and I was a treasurer. So I knew how to look at accounts. I knew financial analysis. So those are things that you have to list, and then you narrow down on what you want to do. Where do you want to go? And it doesn't have to be just one thing. You can have two, three things, and this is where you're going to research about all three of them. The next step, um, you pick what you want. I was very clear that I wanted to go with data for three reasons. One, I was good at it. One, I really liked it. I liked doing analysis. Three, there were a lot of jobs that were out there in my area where geographically I knew that I had a better chance of getting into it than in the other area. So those are all very important too. Um, Scour the job portals. This is something that I highly recommend. Once you have narrowed down maybe two or three areas where you're interested in, scour the job portals. Look at each job description and write down what they're asking for. And this would be different across industries. For example, financial industry might probably use more of R than Python. You don't know. So look at it. And then there are some commonalities always there across the board. If you want, for data, you need SQL, you need Excel, you do need Python skills. Yes. So these three were very common across the board. So those are things that I would write down, and then write down the job titles. They are completely different. The say if you take just data is just too vast. There are so many things that you can do in it. If you are targeting big companies, large companies, then they will have each section of preparing the data, mining it, then analyzing it. And if you go into data science, that's another, there's another step there. So just where would you want to be? Maybe you want to be a database manager. So where are your strengths? Or if you don't know about it, just look at what looks good for you. Look at, read the job description and say, hey, I think I can do this. I think I'll be good at it. And I think I'll be interested in it. So write those down. Next, this is very, very important. It took me some time to do this because I felt like, my friends have gone ahead without me. I'm not in the same place. I was feeling a little ashamed to admit it. So I started, but once I got over it, I started to speak to as many people as possible in the roles that I wanted to get advice. What did you do? What do you do in your job? Is this, I have all these things that I look at in the job descriptions. Do I really need to learn all of these, or what should I do? That once you have all this, then you can move on to the next set, which is how do you upskill? Once you have a list of skills that you want to target, where do you go? Where do you find all these resources? For me, I decided to go with a boot camp with UC Berkeley, a data science boot camp. Two reasons. One is because I do better when I interact with people, and they had an interactive session. A lot of the boot camps are you have to learn on your own. So that is one. And before I did the boot camp, I also did a series of courses in edX and Coursera to see whether I was actually interested in all these things, or I'm just like, oh, they all sound great, but do I have the patience and the ability to actually grasp what is going on? So I did a bit of research before, and then I invested in a boot camp to do that. There are several things that are out there where you can figure out from talking to people and from your research whether you need a certification, where you want to do a boot camp, or can you, just learn it on your own? Do you really want to invest a lot of money into getting another degree, or, like I said, doing other courses? If you have the ability to do it on your own, then please go ahead and do it. It's great. Boot camps do, for me, it gave me a list of what all you need for this particular, it gave me an introduction to, or a reintroduction in some cases, to the skills you need for a data analyst and a data scientist. They also help me make a portfolio, which is very, very important. That's my second thing is, please make a portfolio, especially if you're going into a technical arena. Portfolio shows them that you are serious and you have the skills, and you can explain projects that are there. There is plenty of data out there that you can use. Unfortunately, I don't know much about software engineering, but I know that there are plenty of resources out there. One of the things that I wanted to point out was there is a site called careerkarma.com where you can go, and they will tell you where all you can get these skills. They also list out if you want to be a software engineer, what are the skills that are currently applicable? Where can you go and get them? If you have a list like that, then you can go and research more. And the internet is plentiful for upskilling your technical skills. There is also especially for data science, there is something called as Analytics Vidya, which again, they give you a lot of projects that you can work on, where to get that data and how to do it. I highly recommend having a GitHub portfolio so that you can showcase it, or a website where you've created the website, you've pulled in a lot of things, and to show them what you can do, what is it that you're looking for. And you can speak on those projects in your interviews too. So that's great. Okay, so I just wanted to put a couple of slides on the hard skills and soft skills that are most often asked in the industry. Excel, they still use Excel everywhere. Excel is used for large as well as small analysis. In anything, whether you are using it in program management, product management, or in data, you use Excel. VBA is the programming language for Excel. You can customize it with VBA, so that's good to learn too. Tableau and BI are often asked as data visualization tools, so they are also pretty common. Like I said, if you are in data or in any programming, SQL, Python, and depending on which area you're in, they might ask for Java, or And there are plenty of resources out there. I used to use W3 Schools, Coursera, Udemy, whatever is out there. For SQL, especially, I really like Alex the Analyst. He's on YouTube and he's great. He teaches from basic to advanced, and that's amazing what he does. Um, Data structures are one of the most commonly asked interview questions. It doesn't matter which technical field you are in, whether even if you're in data science, they'll ask you. They need you to know. They need to know that you understand um, how the process is, how data can be stored. Do you understand what is happening behind? Because the way you write your code can affect it. Other things are PowerPoint for presentations. There is math. Math is very important. Depending on the role that you're looking at, it could be from basic to advanced math. There are plenty of courses again out there for you to brush up on, or if you want to learn new skills. Um, Practice for interviews. This is something that I cannot stress enough. After you have a grasp of um, everything that you have, of your coding languages or anything, there is a technical interview that will be asked sometimes, and you have to practice for it. And Lead Code has a lot of examples. Companies, it depends on which company you're going, and they have company specific questions that you can practice on too. Most companies, if you are going into a very technical role, they don't exactly look for syntax, but they do ask that you know the pseudocode. So practice writing the pseudocode, which is very, very important. Soft skills, communications. They will ask you for examples of how did you interact with your stakeholders when you had to explain a problem that you have come up with. Leadership, they will ask, these are all interview questions that you can look up. One of the things that I actually did was Amazon, I heard, has a very extensive interview process, and their questions are plenty. So I Googled, Amazon questions for a data analyst, for a data scientist, and I wrote down everything, and I wrote down the answers for each of them, for each scenario that they ask, and for most often asked interview questions. But I wrote them down, and then I practiced them in front of the mirror. And I also did mock interviews with my friends so that I get more comfortable answering them in interviews. Most often what happens is whatever you write down, you will write down 2 pages of the answer, but when you talk, you will be only able to speak to maybe 25%. So you need to figure out how to talk the most pertinent questions, because you will be nervous in the interview, so you might forget. Use the
Yeah, this is so valuable, and I hate to interrupt you. We just have about a minute left, and I
Sure.
wanted to get to a question that was in the chat. But absolutely love these soft skills and hard skills. And I also just wanted to kind of remind everybody that, and we'll talk a little bit more in the next session with Sarah White about what a returnship looks like, and how we don't always have as challenging of like technical interviews for a returnship, which is nice, but it's still so valuable to gain these skills ahead of time. I was just looking at this question in the chat, Ramya. So Marina has a 10-year career break. She is 10 years in finance, strengths are interpersonal team skills, kind of put all of her skills there. Targeted for associate project management in IT or finance, has a Google project management certification, but has struggled to find a job for a year. And she's looking at getting a CAPM in 2 weeks, and hesitant to invest in a Berkeley project management boot camp. What would you recommend?
I would, like I said, I would talk to people who are in this current role. If you don't know anyone in your circle, reach out on LinkedIn. That's what I did. Um, The maximum they can say is they don't want to talk to you or they won't reply to you. But there are people, especially on their LinkedIn profile, they will tell you that they are open to talking about it, about their roles. They're open to helping people, and so that's what you should do. I would feel if you are still on the fence about it, ask them. I would also go to the product certification as well as the boot camp that she's going to thinking of. Ask them for past students who they can reach out to. Talk to them. How did they feel that it was valuable or not to do this? Where are they currently? Are they still struggling even after this? Boot camps don't give a guarantee that you will get placed, obviously, but the skills that you learn there, are they really useful or not, is something that that she can figure out. And they will generally give you their past students. I
That's
did
a
that.
great idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never even thought to do that, Ramya, to ask about students who've been in the program and get their perspective. I think that's a fantastic idea. Well, I want to thank Ramya so much for giving us her advice today. And I think Ramya will be around for some of the networking if she can make it. Make sure that you head over to the next session by clicking on that little session button to the left. And then you'll be able to pop into Sarah White and Shafali's session next. Thank you so much, everyone. And a huge thanks to Ramya for all of your extremely valuable advice today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'll try to make the networking sessions. Definitely.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody.
I hope everyone is doing well. And what an excellent session, right, Sarah?
Yes,
From Mania?
yes.
It was just
So
fantastic.
valuable.
So valuable. So before we dive into our session on upskilling and the importance of upskilling, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Shifali Bhutani, and I am the Senior Program Manager for Fidelity Investments. So I have the privilege and the honor to bring all these amazing resumers, and it's such an honor to say that in the course of the 1.5 years I have been with reachHIRE, I have had the privilege to get at least more than 100 resumers back, right, Sarah? And this is my third program running, 11th program with Fidelity. So more about the Fidelity program in the next session. So I started my career, which has had different trajectories over the course of a span of 2 decades. In 1999 here in the US, that was my first job, believe it or not. And I know you know all about my career, Sarah, because you hired me.
I
But
did, yes.
audience, so I started working as a desktop support specialist with a large Fortune 50 company, and very quickly moved up the ladder in the corporate world, becoming the implementation manager for another organization. Then I took a shift because we moved out of the country. But before that, I started to recruit. So I started my own company as a recruiter. So from being in the corporate world to now jumping on to becoming a recruiter and starting my company, it was a different ballgame altogether. But there was so much that I learned from that. When I was recruiting, I noticed that some people get hired very quickly and some have a struggle. So in that course, I realized one thing about myself. So there was a big realization that my career, I want to be there to help people, to support them, to guide them. So this is where I want to always be. So I switched gears, moved from my recruitment company to started to train those folks who were interviewing but were not landing the jobs that they wanted or they desired. So I started corporate trainings, did a lot of leadership trainings, and a lot of communication skills trainings with different organizations. So while I was doing these trainings, and I've had great success with my clients who were looking for support in getting the roles, so helping them with interview practices, and almost like 100% success there. But I felt like something there was missing. So I decided that let's, jump the guns here. Let me get upskilled and learn more about what training is all about. So I started my upskilling, where I did my coaching and executive training certification from the leading coaching academy in the UK, called the Coaching Academy, so that I could better influence my clients, and so that they're able to represent themselves better. What else could I bring to the table for them so that they feel valued in getting what they're getting from me? So while this was going well, I realized that there is something more, that is finding what triggers you, what drives you, what brings that grit in you. So I went back to training myself. So I went to the Oxford Mindfulness Center, got my feet wet in the mindfulness cognitive therapy, and then went up to Brown University, Rhode Island, to get my certification in mindfulness based stress reduction, so that I was able to understand, the underlying objective of what drives people. So while I was doing all of this, I kind of created a framework for my clients, which is the framework that I bring into this role, because I think there is a fine thread that has kind of strung all of these little beads into my career to where I am now, which is I figured out very early on that I wanted to be able to support people and guide them. But over the years, I had to upskill myself to make sure that I brought the best in people by giving them the best that was out there. So the framework that and this is a free giveaway for everyone who's listening, that is, and something that Ramya also mentioned through her slides, the framework is in 3 segments. Whether you're doing a technical skill or technical role, or not. There is something technical about everything that you do. For example, if I were a mindfulness based coach, I needed to have the technicality in that role to be able to support myself and the others. So, the first segment in the framework is technical training, making sure that you're upskilling yourself throughout. Whether you are taking a career break by choice or you happen to be home, but now you've made a shift and you want to change careers, bringing yourself up to speed on that. Second segment in the framework is interpersonal skills. And Ramya also alluded to that it's so important to have those leadership skills, the communication skills. How do you influence people? And you don't have to go far to look for those. You are doing that on a daily basis, influencing your spouse, influencing people at home, your kids perhaps, influencing the teachers or anybody that you're talking to, or you're influencing in some way or the other. Then I felt that digging in deeper, which is intrapersonal skill, is also very important, which means that finding what drives you, knowing whether you want to really come back to the workforce, right? Making that choice that, yeah, I made a conscious decision, just like how Ramya said that, turn of events made her decide that she had to close her store and then look for another rollback or coming back into the corporate world. But she took that pause to bring that realization that this is what she wanted to do. So you are 100% focused. And then bouncing back ability, right? From an adversity such as this, or just knowing that, oh my God. And I think Ramya mentioned that she felt like she was missing out. So knowing that, how do I bounce back? How do I build my confidence and showcase that? And last but not least, knowing how to receive feedback. So you have that quality in you to be persevering. So if you build that thick skin, and the framework, which is of technical skills, interpersonal skills, and intrapersonal skills, you bring that package together, upskilling yourself throughout the journey, taking a pause and knowing that you've done this so far. It's not like you have to now do this whole big thing to go forward. You've always done this, but taking that pause to realize and then taking the next step forward will only set you up for success. So, what do you think about that, Sarah? I know that was a lot.
Well, but it was great. Yes. And you've been on, such an incredible journey that's landed you here. And for that, obviously we're the fortunate ones, but certainly the way that you went about figuring out where am I going to land? How do I go about this is so deliberate, methodical, and taking a really, kind of direct approach, which I think is so critical, but also it's not the easiest thing for many people to do. And took you a while, right, to kind of go through different pitfalls and peaks and valleys and really kind of internal reflection that got you to where you are today. But I think for many, they're often starting when we work with them with just this kind of eyes wide open, okay, I've got my resume ready, I've started applying, I'm LinkedIn profiles ready, and that's great. That's absolutely the baseline of where you need to start. But even before that, as many people have alluded, sometimes with returners, we talk to folks that say, my gosh, I've been at this for a year, 2 years, and I just keep getting no's. And this type of program is exactly what I need. And in many cases, you're right, because it does allow you that supported on-ramp. It does get you into a role sometimes that allows us to help you with kind of fleshing out where are those transferable skills that I have, but also where are the skills that I'm lacking in, and do I have enough to get started, right? These are the questions that many people are faced with when they come to us initially and apply to roles with us. And I'm here to tell you just from my perspective, I've been here with reachHIRE now for about 4 years, recruiting returners. I work with the clients directly as often the one who's not only really collaborating with the clients to scope out, what roles are good fits for returners, what roles should we be taking on and not. We have lengthy discussions about what are the truly must-have skills that this person needs to come in with day one in the program, and what can they kind of get to over time, or what is that kind of skills that will be acquired or used post-program, so that we can then set the stage for you as we interview you in these programs and say, in the interview process, to the candidate, this is what you really need. And let's talk about where your skills are with that, or what you've done with that previously. Now, definitely we understand that you may look at the job description and say, oh my gosh, I don't know. There's 10 things there. I only have 7 of them. I'm not sure this is going to work, or I'm doubting myself, right? And oftentimes we won't be putting your resume forward unless we believe that you can do it based on what the client has shared. Now, the other thing is, so we want to collaborate with you on that, right? And really kind of march towards what roles are the right fit. But the overarching thing I hear from a lot of the managers that we work with is really about that, what we call, attitude and aptitude, right? These are 2 huge things for returners that, once you've kind of gone through the journey of, okay, my resume is ready, I've added my upskilling efforts on there, things that I've decided to focus on, please, as a tip, just make sure that is on there. Anything that you have, either completed, whether it's a course, a boot camp, a certification, even if it's in progress or something you just signed up for, but you're just haven't really started yet, I still encourage people to put that on there, because it does show to the manager, I've got a realistic view and attitude about this journey. I'm ready to get started. I'm already kind of taking the bull by the horns and saying, I can do this, and I'm getting started. That if I'm fortunate enough to land on your team or at this company, I'll have a leg up, right? I've already started the journey, and then we'll continue to learn in my program. And so for many managers, when we share a resume and they don't see that kind of effort on there, it's not that we can't place those people, because we certainly do, but it does kind of separate candidates out from others that may have had a 5-year break, a 10-year break, and are applying and just kind of fingers crossed, right? Like hoping for the best in terms of outcome. Now, we are your advocates. We are here to sell your background to the client and share, all the great things that you bring to the table. But I will say they love to hear from you directly in the interview, and also on your resume about kind of what's already going on behind the scenes. What have you been refreshing your skills in, be it coding, Excel, there's lots of different things depending on your path. And I will say, of course, the technical journey, that one, those roles often have a lot more upskilling that takes place, before you can get placed. It's often a harder road for those in the technical areas. So typically I encourage people to, as Ramya was noting earlier, really look at those job boards. What's out there, and what do I keep seeing everywhere that I recognize I don't have, whether that's AWS, business intelligence tools, automation experience, or even just really strong Excel skills. And I'm just not there anymore. And I kind of feel like rusty at best. Any of these areas that you're seeing frequently in the job titles that you're pursuing, I encourage you to kind of pause and say, okay, what can I do here to make sure that I've got that chance to get selected? If I now can add advanced Excel course onto my resume, maybe that will get me more hits on my, more yeses to interviews. It's kind of taking 2, maybe 3 things max, I would say, at a time, and really focusing on what can I do in the here and now, and then what's my longer range goal. If my longer range goal is to get placed somewhere by the end of the year, in the next 3 months, I'm going to work on this and that. And perhaps I also select one thing that really may or may not be relevant to my field of choice, but I find fascinating. That's my other tip, is that I just encourage people to always be a continuous learner, but really think about, what are the concrete things that I must learn? And then what's something else that will keep me motivated and excited to keep doing this? Because it may or may not be relevant to my field of choice, but it keeps you going. It keeps you energized. And that often is just so helpful to candidates on this journey. As we work with different, clients, I just keep hearing the same kind of consistent overarching themes as we work with different clients and managers alike. And the last thing I would say is just, imagine, going into an interview with a hiring manager and being able to say, I know that thanks for the opportunity to interview. And I know that you have, your team works with business intelligence tools like Tableau. Even though I haven't worked with that yet, if I get the good fortune to join your team, I wanted you to know I signed up for a course last week and I'm already learning about it, right? So hearing that resonates so much differently than just, I'm willing to learn, right? Like that just separates you apart and shows that motivation and drive that we all know you have within you. So those are just kind of some, I guess, little tidbits that I bring to any candidate that asks me about upskilling, because I think it's just a consistent pattern in terms of just what the managers are all seeking and what they like to see in our participants.
And that's such a great advice, Sarah. I also feel that, like you said, I am a resumer myself, as you know.
Yeah.
Now, drawing a bridge between where you are now and where you want to be, or where you started from, that, the way you said that, it's just that's where you're filling the gap. You're trying to convince or bring that point of view to the manager, saying that I've done all of this, and the gap wasn't just about me doing nothing. It was about me upskilling and getting all these other nuances that are relevant, whether they are soft skills that we talk about or the hard technical skills that are needed.
And I will say the other piece to that with the soft skills is when you mentioned taking feedback and kind of deciding what to do with that and having a thick skin, right? Like all of these things are important. That sometimes we'll work with a candidate who didn't get the job the first time, right? They were the runner-up and they're kind of a little bit deflated, wishing that was their chance. Taking that feedback as to maybe what drove the decision for the other candidate. If it's something as simple as, well, they had experience with this and that person didn't. If that's something quick, kind of a quick fix that you can do to say, not to guarantee I'll get it next time, but if that maybe is that answer that you keep hearing, oh man, they needed that business intelligence experience and I don't have that. Right. If it's something that can quickly be done, there's lots of these great, free or limited cost resources out there now that are so helpful. Maybe it's a little quick thing that you can do to fix that problem, and next time will be your lucky time. But also, sometimes it's just a matter of finding that right fit and landing where you're supposed to be, the types of roles that are kind of meant and fit for your background specifically. And sometimes that looks different than what you may have started with, right? It can definitely shift over time, as you know, Shefali, from what you've done.
Yeah, and it's like considering your ways to quickly build your skills. I have had my share of downs getting to where I am now, but making sure that I, build that a gap and then move forward. So I appreciate that you're bringing up. Hey, Justin.
Hey, what I appreciate two of you. What a wonderful session. Thank you guys so much for sharing. It was so great to hear both of your perspectives. And that brings us to the close of our second session of the day. But I do want to come in and set a quick little housekeeping, a little bit of a, hey, make sure you check out and get the most value out of this event. A couple things. We're going to get into our networking session up next. You're going to be able to, you can see it, it says networking and there says now on the button on the side. You're going to have to give permissions to your screen to allow it to be able to share. And then you'll be matched up randomly with all of the different participants we have here. You'll have a minimum of 5 minutes, maximum of 10 minutes to communicate, network. If anybody has any issues or wants any further information, I can most certainly be able to help out once I send out my follow-up email at the end of today. Once I send the follow-up email, you will get all of the great links that I have provided for you right below. If you scroll down with your mouse, you will see next week's event. reacHIRE presents Get to Know the Fidelity Resume program. You can register right there on that blue button. Then you'll see open roles. We have our current opening of Fidelity Resume program. We have all of our reacHIRE opportunities as well as our career tracks. And then, of course, all of the social that we would love for you to follow and stay up to date on all the wonderful things happening at reacHIRE. That is going to go ahead and conclude today's event. Again, go on over to that networking. It's open till 1:30. We'll all be there. You might be able to have a conversation with us. And then look forward to my follow-up email later today with today's PowerPoint presentation that Ramya was able to share with us, as well as all of the resources that we have below, above, on the side, and everything else you can ask for. I appreciate everybody today. Thank you again, Shefali, Sarah. Thank you again, Laura and Ramya. And I look forward to seeing you guys all in networking.